Here to share much more insight on their culture of service, we are so excited to welcome our keynote speaker. Throughout her career, Johnni Beckel has worked with major hospitality companies like Yum Brands and was involved in the opening of Disneyland Paris. As Chief Human Resources Officer and Senior Vice President of OhioHealth, she is responsible for world-class customer service instilled through its 29,000 associates. We are so proud to have them as one of our longest partnerships at Dawson, and we are so excited to have her here. Please give her a warm round of applause and a Dawson welcome to Johnni Beckel.
Hi, everyone. Did I hear Dawson? Yes. That is the coolest. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. I was honored to be asked, and customer experience is a deep embedded passion for me. So when the topic was surfaced, I jumped at the opportunity. What I want to do is really spend time with you today talking a little bit about my lens to the customer experience, but I'm going to do it through, hopefully, conversations. So the theme of today is conversations, and several stories that unfold kind of how I view customer experience. Does that sound fair? Okay. But before, okay, here we go. But before I do, one of the themes you're going to hear as I kind of walk through the next half hour, 45 minutes, is really what I deeply believe around the customer experience, as well as the associate experience, is making the ordinary extraordinary. So you're going to hear that theme throughout, and hopefully by the end of our 45 minutes together, you'll kind of know what I mean by that. And so first, I wanted to share a little bit more of OhioHealth. Who in the room recruits for OhioHealth? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So first, thank you. We'll talk a little bit about the Dawson partnership here in a minute. But OhioHealth, just to give you a little bit of context, we have about 30,000 associates in the footprint of Ohio, including associates, physicians, volunteers, across 11 hospitals, multiple care sites, including inpatient, outpatient, our lab locations, urgent care, freestanding EDs. And so the challenge we have is a very vast footprint where our associates reside in multiple locations. The second opportunity that we have, and our mission is really, and what we're really at the heart of it challenged to do, is help make people's lives better. So there are, one of the two most important things in people's life is their health. And for us, what we do is really improve the health of those we serve. And in order to do that, we have to figure out, my team has to figure out how to leverage those 30,000 associates in order to maximize so that they can deliver that to our patients and to our customers. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I have been very fortunate to, I'm going to try and jump back and forth here. I've been very fortunate to have had an opportunity to have a pretty vast career. And the common theme of the organizations that I've had the opportunity to work with is really around the customer experience. But there's a few unique things that I would say about these organizations, all of them in various stages of what the customer experience means. So Bank of America, I joined Bank of America when they were going from the largest nationwide bank to wanting to really drive more intimacy with the customers and really getting into how do we engage with the customers differently. Growth through organic growth through built relationships and things like that. They had historically been acquiring. So that experience was really around how do you get associates who've been very transactional historically. It's all about the teller, the transactions, to really understand people when they deal with money, their money, it's not money. What it is their hope and dream of owning a house, sending their kids to college. And so the mission wasn't about the transaction. It was really getting over 100,000 people to understand you are part of making that customer's dream a reality. So that was the challenge that I had at Bank of America. I started my career at Disney. I was there about 10 years, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Disney really, I started my career in operations. Disney has a philosophy where they take operators that are running the business, tap them on the shoulder, bring them into operations for 2 years, and then fold them back out into the business. So why do they do that? The culture is very important at Disney, and it's very they call them cast member driven, and they deeply believe that when you get your operators to internalize what it means about the culture and the people, that you have a better guest experience and stronger financial results. So they are constantly rotating operators into HR. I went in and actually just never came back out. So, it was very hard for me to accept that position because I didn't want to leave operations, but it changed my life. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Disney as we go through the conversation. Yum Brands, one of the things we were challenged to do with Yum Brands was really look at how do we leverage the scale of Yum Brands, Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, all with infrastructure above them, but common leadership with a common mission. So for them, it was about really driving consistency in operations and seeing if you could really scale it. From a cultural standpoint, one of the things that we realized at Yum in the engagement of the associates or the employees was really about the engagement of their parents. Why do you think that is? What'd you say? Say it louder. Teenagers. But what was it about that population, do you think, that got us to, can't drive? Turnover. In those 3 brands, we were dealing with probably 200% turnover, anywhere from 150 to 200% turnover. And what we found was that population would jump across the street for 25 cents. And so some of the things we did to engage the hearts and minds of our staff was really engaging the hearts and minds of their parents. And so really understanding and identifying what drives not only the customer experience, but the associate experience, and going after it with vigor is something that that's critically important from my view around the customer experience. So what we did there was we had new hire orientation for parents, and really emphasized we will be flexible with your child's schoolwork. If they have a test, if they have something they need to do, we will accommodate it. We'll be flexible because we want them to stay with us. And so when that Taco Bell employee went to their mom and said, "Hey, I'm going to across the street for 25 cents more," what do you think that mom said? No. So that's an element of the culture we learned and how to engage differently to keep those associates, which impact the customer experience. And then, obviously, OhioHealth. Cardinal Health I was with for about 7 years, a very different model, business to business. But I will say, OhioHealth, I just wish I would have found it 15 years ago. Love the organization, very focused on the customer as well as the associate. Lots of companies talk about a balanced scorecard and really thinking in a balanced way. We really live it. But our relationship, I do want to recognize and thank all of you for all that you do for us every day. Our relationship is 15 years in the making. And to me, there's a difference between a vendor and a partner. And I view Dawson as a partner. And what do I mean by that? A partner is a friend. A partner is part of the team, part of your family. They've got your back. They're watching out for you. And you are an extension of us. And we entrust you with our most valuable resource, our people. And, when you're recruiting to make our culture better. So I just wanted to say thank you because you are really, really important to us. You're important to everybody you recruit for. But for us, our culture is so important to us. When you make that decision to hire or send somebody to us, that's protecting our culture. And we take that very, very seriously. So hats off and thank you for all that you do for us as an organization. So for me, as you think about the customer experience, for me, it starts with the associate experience and the culture. So my lens is, if you've got a great culture, that drives a great customer experience, and that will drive your financial results. And everything you do should center around that model. And culture doesn't happen by chance. You have to be very deliberate. You have to be thoughtful. You have to work on it every day. So as you think about our service model at OhioHealth, we really think of it as engaging the heads, hands, and hearts of our associates. So in anything we do, we talk about, what do you want people to know? What do you want them to do? But more importantly, what do you want them to feel? And the scale on that model, I lean heavily on the heart. When you talk about the customer experience, you talk about the associate experience, the heart really, really makes the difference. And you can apply this whether you're talking about recruiting. If you think about a candidate, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to feel? What is the knowledge they need? What are the tools, experiences they have? But more importantly, what's in their heart and where are they coming from? And if you can figure that out, that's going to help shape the culture of the organization or any organization that you're recruiting from. So as you think about making the ordinary extraordinary, I want to give you an example, and Nancy knows this well. About 2 years ago, we had a very successful year financially, very, very strong, and we wanted to give a thank you to our associates. And we brainstormed, we got people together. What do? We give them a gift card? Do we, give them a special bonus? Do we give them an extra tap day? What do we really want to do? And I've got a team, a culture team, that is basically focused on the associate experience. So I pulled them together and I said, hey, here's what we want to do. I want you to go away and help me figure out what can we do that's going to be different, make an impact, really be something special. So those of you that know us, we have a big focus on health and wellness. Not only internally, but for our customers and our patients. So the team came back. They came back and said, okay, are you ready? Sit down. And I'm like, okay, I'll sit down. So I sat down and they said, we want to give everybody a pair of tennis shoes. I'm like, what? Yeah, so here's our idea. We want to give everybody an individual pair of tennis shoes that they can use to become healthier, walk, and kind of send the message of wellness, but also give them something from a recognition standpoint. So I'm like, okay, I've got to take this to my CEO, but I like the idea. I like their passion. Took it to the CEO, and my CEO said, I love it, but I have 2 requests. I'm like, okay, what? One is, don't give anybody cheap shoes. And number 2 is they can wear them anywhere. Meaning, if I could put on my shoes with this outfit and it would be okay. So they can wear it with suits, they can wear it with any meetings, they can wear it anywhere. I'm like, okay, got it. So we partnered with Zappos. We developed a website that they could get any shoe they wanted, in any color they wanted, drop shipped to their house, but we kept it really quiet. So there were like 4 or 5 people in the company that knew about it. We wanted the element of surprise. So we there was a mailer that went out with a what are they called, riddles? With a riddle. What has more than 56,000 feet and saves lives? We do. So there was this random kind of mailer that did a little tease. Then we did a video. And the video was basically people walking all over the hospital. High heels, boots, scrub shoes, you name it. And when we launched it, everybody could go on, pick their shoe, get it drop shipped. The buzz that it created was unbelievable. I think even you said, some people would be interacting at the grocery store with somebody from Mount Carmel, and they'd say, I heard you guys got tennis shoes. So it created a lot of buzz. It was making the ordinary extraordinary. So rather than giving everybody $80 Meijer gift card, this created a link to our vision and mission. It communicated wellness and what we were trying to do as an organization, and it helped the associates. I got a ton of emails, but the one that was most hit me like right in my gut, it was from an RN, a nurse, and she wrote me and she said, I want to thank you. She said, I'm a single mom with 4 kids, and I cannot remember the last time I got myself a new pair of shoes. And since I got these tennis shoes, I'm walking at night. I've lost 10 pounds, and it was just something that didn't cost a lot, but it made a big difference, and it was something unique and something people remember. I'll be walking through the hospitals, and somebody will be like, hey, look, I still have my shoes. When are we getting a new? Right. It wasn't cheap. But it was impactful. It was a way to say thank you, and it was a way to really make ordinary extraordinary. So I wanted to give you another story and another example. I was with Disney 10 years, started in operations, moved into HR, managed the Disney Institute and Disney University and different things like that. And from a culture standpoint, we looked at our associate engagement over the course of the lifetime of a cast member. And we identified something very interesting and unique. What happened was at the 5 or 6 year mark, there took a dip. And it dipped probably for 2 years, and then it started to climb back up. For some reason, the magic, if you will, of Disney was wearing off at that 5 year point. And part of that could be like, I want a new job. I don't know how to get that new job. I want a promotion. I don't know how to do that. But there was an emotional dip. So we looked into it and decided we wanted to implement an engagement program or a training program that would occur at everyone's 5 year anniversary. It was 3 days. 2 of the days was having every cast member go through the process of being a character. So what we did was all the characters from Goofy to who's the Duck, Donald Duck, to different heights, weights, characteristics. So part of the program is you went in and got categorized. You got categorized into, based on your size and weight, what character would you fit into? So I went through the pilot program. My character was Chip. And so once you identified what character you fit into from a size, height, weight, all that kind of stuff, you had to audition. You went through probably 4 or 5 hours of Chip training, like their personality, what they love, what they don't love, what's their demeanor, how do they act, no voice, but signature. So there was an hour of practicing how to write Chip. Because every Chip signature has to be the same. So we went through a day of audition and a day of practice. And I can still remember the one motion that you had to use. Tell me if you recognize this. So Chip, in the signature, I went through my training. I knew his personality, everything. Day 3, there was preparation. You had to go in the underground. You had to go to the costume department. You had to get your outfit. You had to get the head. You had to get everything. You had to go get changed. You were going through the process of actually being the character. 2 full days for only 45 minutes in the park because it's hot. It's stressful, you can't see, so you're only allowed in the park 45 minutes. Went through training, know how to make the signature, you had a lead, so each character has a lead that escorts you, watches you, makes sure that everything's okay. You go out and you go into the park, and they place you, and all of a sudden you get this line of kids. And I cannot tell you the feeling you get when you look down at that child, and they look up at Chip, and you're Chip, and you are impacting that child's life, their view of Disney, their view of the magic. And I mean, I was in Chip crying. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you my signature. I mean, it is and then there's things you have to worry about, like you have to keep your hand on the outside of the child, you can't have it behind, and so I'm trying to worry about all this stuff. But I'll tell you what it did here, like, I don't even know, 30 years later, I'm still talking about that experience. And we could have very easily developed a training program about Disney, fun facts, things that are happening, but it was about what? The heart. It was about the heart and connecting me as an associate or a cast member to what our mission is, which is making dreams come true, right? And so that's how Disney tackled that dip, which is reconnecting those cast members at that 5 and 6 year point to the mission of what Disney's all about. And I will tell you, I've never forgot it. And it's making the ordinary extraordinary. It's really easy to tell people about the character experience, tell people about what it's like and that we're making dreams come true. But for me to stand in 90-degree weather beside the castle with a line of kids in front of me, looking through those eyes at that magic was impactful. So making the ordinary extraordinary. Now, in any service, any customer experience, you're going to have mistakes. How you recover from those mistakes can win customers over forever. And again, as you think about, there's 2 messages in this story. One is making the ordinary extraordinary, but the second, and this happened early in my career, it was the biggest customer mistake I ever made in my career. And the second thing I learned from it is I cannot solve the problem. I have to engage my team. So Disney had came up with an adult entertainment place called Pleasure Island. Who has heard of Pleasure Island? Okay, good. You've been there? Yep. Okay, good. The concept was great. Everyone comes with their kids, but there's really nowhere for adults to enjoy themselves and things. So this Pleasure Island, every night is New Year's Eve. There are probably 11 bars, lots of outdoor celebration, and at midnight, confetti, fireworks, champagne toasts, and each bar is a unique experience. Since they've changed it, it's no longer there. But I was on the opening team from an operations standpoint of Pleasure Island. And so what they gave me was outdoor food, so all the food on the outside, the money, so that means I was the last leader to leave the island, and valet parking. So valet parking, I said, why do you want to give me valet parking? I have never valet parked a car in my life. Now, I've had somebody valet park my car, but I've never, and they said, no, we think you can do it. So I'm like, okay. So I go over to the Grand Floridian, which is one of the flagship properties, and put a valet parker uniform on, and valet park as a parker for a week. So I wanted to learn the ins and outs, the inside, what it's like, what are the dynamics, what are the concerns, all that kind of stuff. So I learned a ton. And Grand Floridian had a podium like this, but up here it was a trough, and it had slats in it where you'd take the keys from the guest, write their name and the license plate, place the keys in the thing, and sit it in this trough thing. So Disney has every department owning some. So I called the people in charge of making this thing, said, I want one just like the Grand Floridian. Got it. So they made it for me. I'm over at Pleasure Island. One of the things Disney does is huge press events. Before they open, they invite everybody in the world to come, and they have a press event. So the whole island, the first night was a press event. tables of lobster and champagne and Bette Midler and you name it. Everybody was there. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, lots of press because they want them to write about it, right? So we're all ready. The island's ready. I've got all my valet parkers lined up. Cars start coming in, Bentleys, Mercedes, I mean, you name it. Everything's going like clockwork. Perfect. It was about 11:30. New Year's Eve happens at midnight. It starts sprinkling. About quarter till, it starts pouring. The one thing I didn't realize was at the Grand Floridian, this thing was under a porte-cochere. They built it, and I had it in open air. So it starts pouring down rain. We're scrambling for umbrellas. I look down. All of the envelopes have disintegrated. And there are, basically, it's a mound of keys. Right. So I'm in my head like, I'm done. I'm fired. This is the end. It's by this time like 5 to midnight. So as soon as midnight happens, people leave. They start leaving. I'm chills. I'm shaking, and I'm like in tears. So I gather, this is probably the customer experience faux pas of my career. I pull my team and I'm like, you guys, what are we gonna do? And we're looking at this mound of keys. I mean, nothing you can make out on any, all the envelopes are gone. The one valet parker says, wait a minute, I have an idea. I'm like, okay, what's your idea? He takes off running. Beside Pleasure Island, where the valet parking, which didn't give me a lot of confidence. I'm like, okay, you're running away. That's your idea, so you don't get fired. So right beside Pleasure Island is the Empress Lily. It's something else now, but it was like a 4-star seafood restaurant. He goes in, and they had shorts and, a tank or whatever. He comes back out in a tux, white gloves, and a huge tray with velvet on it. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, don't worry. So he takes the keys, and he starts laying them out in a presentation circle format. And he has all these keys in like a swirl on the tray. He goes, just trust me. I'm like, okay, I don't have a better idea. So as the customers come, he has the tray, and he presents the tray. Okay, so they just had New Year's Eve. They had a few drinks. Sir, would you identify your keys? Yeah, that's mine. Okay, great. What are you driving? A blue Mercedes. I'll be right back. And he goes and gets it, brings it back, parks. It went off without a hitch. Wow's right. I'm like, but that is, I could have never, ever come up with that. I would have, I'm so sorry, we had rain, I didn't know we were gonna, I'm not sure what keys are yours, but he made that process extraordinary, fun, interactive, and I could have never done it on my own. So, yeah, right? I know. What do you think this number is? Raise your hand, speak out. What do you think it is?
How many patients a day?
How many patients a day? Good guess. How many patients a day we serve?
How many beds?
How many beds? How many people? Close. You're getting close. So the two numbers at the top, if my math is right, equal the number at the bottom. You guys reject or don't send us in 2018 1,224 people that you've interviewed and screened out for us. These are job seekers not hired after interviewing from your interviews for non-healthcare in the staffing division, right? Did I get that right? So there's 3,482 people that you all have screened out for your customers in 2018. Those are rejected or disengaged candidates in 2018. What I would say is common language matters. So as you think about OhioHealth, you think about Disney, you think about Yum Brands, language matters. It sends a message. It encapsulates who you are and what you believe. And so I would say these 1,224 people that you have screened out for us are not rejected candidates or disengaged candidates. They are future customers or patients of ours. So they're either seeing us now or will see us in the future. So I did a little back of the napkin calculation and said the average patient spends about $10,000 a year on healthcare. If we just say, okay, 5 years, what's the value of that for 5 years? $50,000. If we multiply that by the number of people that you turn away for us every year, you are touching and impacting about $65 million of future healthcare spend, if you will, for us. So if that experience, while you are interacting with that associate that never gets to us, is positive, because remember, you are representing OhioHealth in that process. If that's positive and they make a decision on which ED to go to or which doctor to go to, we want them to remember OhioHealth. We want their experience to be extraordinary with you, especially the ones we never ever see. So the people you are touching, whether it's OhioHealth or others that you are not selecting, they are your customers, patients, customers, people that buy from Victoria's Secrets or you name it. And you all, and I know you know this, do an amazing job at this. But every interaction, every touch point, every opportunity, every conversation, every email you send to every one of those candidates, you are building our brand for us. You're shaping their thinking around what OhioHealth is, what it is. And if they don't get the job, they don't ever get to interview with us, we want them to want to come to us someday, or more importantly, be a patient or a customer to us. So let me pause. I know I've got a couple more things I want to share with you, but let me pause. Reactions, thoughts, what's going around in your mind about some of the stories I just shared or some of the conversation we just had?
I think this is fascinating because 2019, our main goal is the experience with customers, clients, job seekers, etc. And so it's easy to have positive experiences with those that are phenomenal, that we want to hire, that show up to every interview, that take the job we've been trying to get them into. But thinking about the fact of the ones that don't go well and how we manage that experience, because they could be future employers, they could be future patients, they could be future buyers. And an example that already came up this morning is that Dawson lost a big client this year, but because of the way everybody at Dawson handled it, a big financial corporation, soon after they realized that they still needed Dawson, and because everyone, as they were set free, handled it so professionally well, they came back, and it's now a bigger client for Dawson.
That is a perfect example, because how you handled that departure or that separation mattered, right? And I've had personally, I'll call them vendors, not partners, but vendors who, once you make that decision, they don't want to have anything to do with you, right? And it just cements in my mind, that's the reason we're not choosing you. You know what I mean? And so what you were able to do was, handle that separation with class, which made them think of you top of mind as you separated and eventually won it back, right? Other comments or thoughts?
This is a perfect experience. Some years ago, my wife had to have some surgery at Grant, and it was going to be a twofold thing. And when we first got there, there's that apprehension and all that. And from the moment that we walked in, the guy that parked our car and the guy that met us at the front desk, and then we ended up in this room and that room and so forth. And one of the things I noticed is that these were the happiest people, and are working in the hospital.
I was like, ugh, what's he gonna say?
It was, And I couldn't get over that because everybody was just so happy and smiley and all
Oh,
this
that's
stuff.
good.
And the one nurse that was preparing my wife for the surgery, and I just asked her, I said, you guys just really love your jobs. You're really happy here. And she told me, she said in the interview with OhioHealth, the first part of the interview is customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about your skills.
That's right.
And I always remember that because when she went back for the second surgery, it was like, we can't wait to get there.
That's right. Actually, we do a pre-screen, and the pre-screen is almost 100% culture. So there's the pre-screen assessment, and we screen out for culture fit because that is so important. What we want them to do and what we want them to know is the easy stuff. What we want them to feel or how we want them to make our customers feel is the essence of it.
If you recall when we first met, I told you that I was fascinated with the Euro Disney experience because I read up on it and I knew all about it. And I remember Disney really tried to do things the way they do them in this country.
Yeah.
And they had a very different experience. They had to change some things. Could you share a little bit about your observations for how it was different and how some
Yep.
things didn't work and you had to rethink
Yeah,
them?
it's a great question. So I was on the opening task force, was over there for about 9 to 12 months, and Disney literally picked up the Florida or the U.S. culture. I mean, lots of Europeans come, right, to our parks and their parks and resorts, picked it up, planted it in 40 miles outside of Paris, and opened the doors. And so there wasn't enough cultural sensitivity and integration in that, which is all about the customer, right? What do the customers want? What do they need? Not what we want to give them. So an example is, the first week in Magic Kingdom, in Florida, Magic Kingdom never sold liquor, right? It's magical, whatever. Now Epcot and all that did, but Magic Kingdom didn't have liquor. So at lunchtime, which for them was 2:00, the park completely emptied out. I mean, people were gone. It was crickets. And we're like, where is everybody? Well, they went out to have lunch so they could have a glass of wine. And then they'd come back in 3 or 4 hours later, and we were like, oh my goodness. So that was one that took them, they didn't take too long to change, like putting wine and that kind of stuff in the park. The other one was Disney has a very strict appearance policy. No colored nail polish, no tattoos, very wholesome kind of look. So we went over and started recruiting, and we weren't getting anybody. And, it was like we couldn't recruit. Well, when we started doing, kind of discussion groups and focus groups and stuff, what we realized was the Europeans were not willing to change their cultural hair, nails, that kind of thing in order to work there. So that's another example of they had to course correct very quickly and say, okay, no, red nail polish is fine, and that kind of thing. But it did take a lot of bumps in the road for us to figure it out. Third example, we were in opening mode, and it was 5 days before opening, and we were unpacking stuff in restaurants, and everyone was helping and everything. Well, at quitting time, gone. Whatever, they would drop what they're doing and leave. And I'd be like, where is everybody? And it was the culture of they work to live, not live to work. And they're out of there. And so we really had to think differently about pacing and sequencing the shifts and being more proactive as leaders. Because here you're like, nope, mandatory overtime, you're going to stay, and we're going to do this and that. And they were gone. So that was a big learning experience, especially around another culture that was critically important. I have, I'm not going to show this video because I have 5 minutes left. But I want to tell this story because this is a very near and dear to my heart. One of the things that I do own is the patient experience across the organization. And what that means is I'm responsible for making sure that the patients that come to any of our care sites get the experience they need. One of the things that we found through the data was that we have a process called intentional rounding. So when your wife's in the inpatient getting surgery, the nursing staff should be coming in every hour to check on your wife's care. How are you doing? What can I help you with? Let me prop you up. Let's go to the bathroom. You know, can I get you a snack? That kind of thing. So for us, a defect is when the patient clicks the call button because we aren't getting their needs met proactively. So we pulled the data and demonstrated that there is a 26.8 point difference in overall satisfaction when hourly rounds occur. So my team, we researched this. I'm like, this is awesome. We need to pull the nurses together. We need to talk about the data. We need to tell them, you know, look, you're going to get higher satisfaction, that kind of thing. I had just stepped into this role, and this was, you know, we were talking about it. We were talking about how we're going to tell the nurses what's going on. I was brand new, 1 month into the role. So I leave this 3-hour meeting on intentional rounding, all about the data. I get in the car. So let's put that story on hold for a moment. This is my mom. My mom, it's really hard because it's hard for me to tell the story without crying, but I'll try. Passed away a year ago. At the time, and I love her to death, she made me who I am, my mentor. So at the time, I left this meeting. I'm driving home. She was in the hospital at the time. I knew it, at home in Huntington, Pennsylvania. So I'm driving home. The phone rings. I pick up the phone, and it's my mom. She's crying. She's like, John. And I'm like, Mom, what's going on? Are you okay? What's happening? And she's like, honey, I'm in my room, and I've pushed the call button for the last 45 minutes, and I can't get anybody to come and help me. I have to go to the bathroom so bad. She's like crying. I'm like, Mom, hold tight. I'm going to call. So I hang up. I call the nurses station. I said, my mom is in room 201 or whatever it was. I need you to go in. She has to go to the bathroom because she was tied. You know, she had tubes and all that kind of stuff. So they went in and took care of her and everything. But it was at that moment that I was like, it isn't about those numbers. It isn't about the numbers. It's about honoring the dignity and worth of the person in that bed that they're at the most vulnerable time of their life. You know, who knows what they're having done, and they're away from their family. They're depending on us and our nurses to take care of them. And for me, the discussion was at that point all about the numbers, but it's not. It's about the compassion, the dignity, the worth. This is the why we do what we do, and getting the associates to understand, or all of you to understand at the heart of it, what is the why, and how do you impact that in extraordinary ways? Last little tiny story. The little things matter, the big things matter. I was and you'll appreciate this being in staffing. At Disney, the building on the left is the casting center. And before the casting center, the employment center, before the casting center was built, hiring was done in trailers all over the place. And it was not the best experience. So they built this casting center. And we were in the final design stages, all around a conference table, everyone brainstorming, okay, well, here's the final design, what are we doing? The one general manager got up and he said, what about the door? And we're like, what? And he goes, let's talk about the door. So they talked about the door. He goes, no. He said, I want the door to be unique. He said, when a person walks up to the casting center, the first thing they're going to see is the door and the doorknob. And I want that to send a message about who we are as an organization, what kind of culture we are, fun, unique. If you work here, the little things matter. And so he changed the doorknob to Alice in Wonderland doorknob. And I was like, wow, the details matter, and how you make the ordinary extraordinary makes a difference in service, makes a difference in engaging the hearts and minds of the associates and customers. And whether it's the big things, whether it's the little things, whether you're recovering from a bad customer experience, whatever it is, you have the power every day, every moment, every interaction to make that interaction unique, special, and extraordinary. And so as you guys break out this afternoon, and I know you're going to spend some time on it, I want you to think about, what can you do tomorrow? What can you do tomorrow to change up and making the little things that are mundane and ordinary extraordinary for your candidates? So let me pause. I know we are at time. I don't know if you want one or two questions? Okay. Yes. Oh, I'll let him be in charge of
Getting
that.
my workout. Good thing I got tennis shoes from OhioHealth.
Well, thank you. That all of this has been really inspiring. One of the things that I was so excited about having you here specifically, that experience at Disney, most of us who have either experienced it or know about it, it's a really fun place to go, and you're expecting magical things to happen. Finding a job or being in the hospital is a big difference from that. So how do you teach your colleagues and employees to really have that empathy? Because to your point, like your mother, she was in a vulnerable, as most people are in the hospital, situation. Most of our job seekers are in very vulnerable situations that they're not used to being in, and we're sitting across the desk with our job telling them how to get a job. So what's your advice there?
So a couple things. There's a lot in that question. And the last thing you said is you guys are changing lives. I mean, the role that you have, you are changing the life of somebody because of the position they're going to get. You're changing their career, changing their financial situation, changing their life. On the service side, I would say the way we think of it is there are multiple levers we pull every day to make sure that how we reinforce, how we train, how we reward and recognize all drives toward that patient customer experience. So we mentioned one, which is hiring for culture fit, hiring for that compassion, hiring for those people that just get it. They just want to serve. They want to help you. The other thing is our performance review, as an example, is 50% what and 50% how. So half of your rating is how you do what you do, how you interact, how you treat customers, et cetera, et cetera. Rewarding and recognizing our values, our system like that. Obviously, training, that's a given. But the other thing I'd say is probably the most important is how we treat our associates is going to be reflective of how we're telling them we want them to treat their customers or patients. So part of the advantage I have is I've got the HR culture side. We put a lot of energy into our management training around the importance of how you treat your associates. What does rounding look like? How do you spend time with them? When you get an email, how do you react to it? So I just picked up Protective Services about 2 months ago, which is basically officers in the care sites. Never shot a gun in my life. I don't know why they gave it to me, but anyway. And I personally, and we don't have a VP right now, so I'm hiring. Every email that any officer sends to me, I personally respond to, and I personally manage their issue till I know it's resolved. And so that care and feeding of your associates puts them in a place, the culture puts them in a place where they feel really good about going out and developing, delivering for our patients. The last thing I'll say is involving our associates in decisions that affect them at the local level. We put a lot of energy around that because there are a lot of pebbles in their shoe that drive them crazy every day, and we've engaged them through lean processes to help engage them in solving those problems. Many of them initially are, I can't find pens when I need it, right? But now we've been at this for a year and a half. The issues are around the call lights and patient issues and different things like that. So it's really empowering the team to own it and help drive what you're trying to drive. So there's just a few thoughts. Thank you very much. I loved being here. I appreciate the invitations. You guys are awesome, and I really value our partnership. So thank you very much.